Welcome to the second part of my review of the D&D races. Just the ones in the PHP this week. This week I'm going to be handling the uncommon races, what they do, what they are, and how they tend to interact with the world. Starting off with Dragonborn. Now, as you can probably surmise, the Dragonborn are partially dragons. It doesn't specify how much dragon they are, whether they're like 50-50 or just a percentage. But they're all part dragon. There is no specific race of Dragonborn. However, there are various tribes and settlements that are primarily Dragonborn in nature. And as such, there's no real cultural background specifically for Dragonborn. There are multiple different colours for Dragonborn, each Dragonborn referring back to the dragon that originally spawned it, or spawned its line, depending. In the PHB, you've got black, blue, brass, bronze, copper, gold, green, red, silver, and white. Each one being equivalent to a metallic or chromatic dragon. They're not specifically evil or good. They don't take alignment from sorry, they don't take alignment from their dragon. However, if you want, you can. There's no reason you can't. Each Dragonborn has an equivalent weapon: black acid, blue lightning, brass fire, bronze lightning, copper acid, gold fire, green poison, red fire, silver cold, and white cold. You can see there that each chromatic dragon has an equivalent metallic dragon. Black is the equivalent to copper. If you want to find out what the personality traits of those dragons tend to be, there are several websites out there and wikis which explain what dragons tend towards what. For example, copper dragons tend to be very gregarious and prankstery. Gold dragons tend to be very noble and haughty. Red dragons are considered to be the most evil dragon around. Green dragons, not that bright, almost animalistic in their nature. So there's various bits there. It's also worth considering, you get a breath weapon and resistance based on that. It is worth considering how that affects your character, particularly copper dragons. You have a gregarious and fun-loving dragon with a breath weapon that is decidedly horrible. Acid is not a fun thing, and spraying people with it does not lead to them not hurting you. It leads to them melting, a la the scene in RoboCop. If anyone hasn't seen the original RoboCop, there is a scene in it where one of the antagonists gets doused in a vat of acid and he melts whilst living. It's really disgusting. So you kind of gotta think about how that's going to affect your character. Setting people on fire is pretty bad. Acid is just horrific. These things are worth considering. Dragonborn tend to be quite proud. Why not? They're very powerful beings. They tend to be quite self-reliant, as there isn't actually a Dragonborn race. You get clans of Dragonborn and families of Dragonborn, but again, they tend to be very self-sufficient, relying on themselves because they don't have anybody else to fall back on. Basically, you're big, you're scary, you're almost demonic looking. It's really cool. Your draconic ancestry, if you want to play a sorcerer or something, that's straight in there. Every Dragonborn gets a breath weapon, as I say, equivalent to its draconic kin, and you get a damage resistance, again the same. If your scales are gold because you're born of a gold dragon, you'll be resistant to damage from fire, and you'll be able to breathe fire. I think it's once between every long rest or short rest. You can automatically read and write draconic as well, which makes dragons very good wizards because they can already read the language that most magic is is recorded in. Next we have gnomes. Gnomes are frankly one of my favourite races. They're one of the smallest but also one of the toughest. They're fey and weird. If halflings are like half humans, then gnomes are like half elves. Only nowhere near as haughty and annoying. They come from the fey realm. They have a lot of tendencies. They don't tend to always really recognise other people's property. They're very easily fascinated. They really enjoy life. They love experiencing things. They like doing things. They're all about living your life to its fullest. They're very vibrant and outgoing. Which, coupled with the fact that gnomes live, depending on the world, almost as long or sometimes longer than elves, they get a lot done. They get a lot under their belt. Any gnome character is going to have been a dozen things before you play him, unless you're playing a very young gnome. They live underground, but unlike other creatures, they live in very bright, beautiful underground cities. There is a duller, less vibrant dark gnome, which the equivalent of the dark elves and the dark dwarves, but they're so vibrant and have such joie de vivre, if you will, that even their underdark, dull-skinned cousins are actually good. They're just much more sedate about it. Whilst they live underground, they tend to go out in the fresh air. They can go out much more. They're very gregarious. They love going out and doing things. Because they're quite tough, they tend not to be anywhere near as, and they live forever, they tend not to be anywhere near as concerned with getting caught and getting killed as halflings are or dwarves are. So they're a lot of fun to play. They're very adventurous. I was thinking a good note for players is, if you're going to play this and you're going to play the I do everything I want gnome, which is a common gnome to play, do it properly, do it all the time. Don't do it just when it benefits you and then go, I'm going to be reasonable when the going gets tough. Either you are this or you're not. I've seen so many people go like, I'm using it as an excuse to do silly things and annoy my party. And then when it gets down to an actual situation where it would cause the gnome problems, they slink off with their tails between their legs. Not that gnomes actually have tails. If you're going to do this thing that annoys everybody, it should come back and slap you in the face every now and then. That's part and parcel of it. The price you pay for being a twat is that everyone knows you're a twat. Rather than just doing it when it benefits you. Again, despite living underground, gnomes travel a lot. They love to see the world. They love to see new things. Size-wise, they're between 3 and 4 foot tall, so they are small. The speed is 25 feet, so not quite as fast. They have dark vision up to 60 feet, so that's really cool. They have gnome cunning, which gives them an advantage on all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And that's a lot of roles there, particularly for a gregarious creature. Gnomes make great diplomats, great bards. You think of them like Loki, and I don't mean the Avengers films Loki, I mean the original Loki. It's almost always Loki's fault the trouble starts, but Loki's usually the one that finishes it and gets you out of it as well. There are 2 sub-races for gnomes. You've got your forest gnome, which can speak with animals, and a natural illusionist, and they're the guys that tend to hang around the forests. They're much more above ground than that. And then you get your rock gnome, and they're more your original, your further back gnomes, less removed from their sort of fey underground existence. They're the ones that tend to have massive underground, well, not massive, but they're the ones that have underground settlements and underground cities and loads of cool stuff with that. They're also the ones that tend to be the tinkerers, the alchemists and stuff like that. As such, that's all. For forest gnome, you get a dex increase of 1. for Rock Gnome, you get a Constitution increase of 1, which added to your original Intelligence increase of 2 makes you quite a tough, smart guy. You get Artificer's Law as a Rock Gnome. Whenever you make an Intelligence check or history check related to magic items, alchemical objects, or technological devices, you can add twice your proficiency bonus instead of any proficiency bonus you normally apply. So that's pretty fantastic. You can figure out how things work. In addition to that, you're a tinkerer, you have proficiency in artisan's tools, and you can make a clockwork toy, like a mouse or something, a fire starter, or a music box. If you're clever, those are actually really blooming useful. Gnomes have a culture and they have a background, but they travel so far and wide that you don't really expect any support from it. However, it can be a good idea to look into the background of, whole underground cities, massive academies dedicated to figuring out how to blow the next thing up, or the natural illusionist of the forest gnome. They're very close to the Sylvans, they're very close to the elves, but they're much more gregarious. They go in and out of places that humans would be killed for going anywhere near with pretty much impunity because they're gnomes. They go, they'll wander into the middle of an elf glade and go, "What's up, bitches?" and not get shot to fuck because they're gnomes and they can get away with it. They have cultures to fall back on, but they're there more as ideas to help you build your character's background, what he might be. The idea of a sort of a wandering Harry Potter, style character, someone that's trained to be an illusionist, trained to be an alchemist, at a mystical school of gnomish magic, but now is trying out other things, works perfectly. Next, we have half-elves. In the previous video, I went through elves. They're very aloof. They're very otherworldly. Half-elves are elvish, but without that. They're much more into humans and elves. They're the bridge between the species. They don't have their own culture, though. They tend to adapt either to human culture, of which there are dozens. You can look in front of the PHB, or there's plenty more resources for human cultures within pre-existing, pre-written worlds, or you can add human cultures in your own one. So if an elf has grown in a human society, it'll have that human culture as its background. If an elf has grown in half-elf has grown in elven society, it'll have that elven culture as its background, and you can develop your character accordingly. They don't really belong in either world, but at the same time, they move freely between both. So there are disadvantages and advantages. Humans might not quite trust them. Elves might think they're a little young and inexperienced, but both of them will talk to them. Elves specifically have a little section there called Diplomats and Wanderers. Half-elves make amazing diplomats, and they make amazing wanderers because they can bridge the gap between different people. And that doesn't just apply to elves and humans. It's kind of an almost innate ability because they're from two worlds and because they're able to recognise that more than, say, other half creatures would be able to. They've got a knack for seeing both sides of the argument, which makes them really good, again, as bards, as diplomats, or as peacekeepers. Ability-wise, your charisma score increases by 2, and 2 other ability scores of your choice increase by 1. So you can see that lends things, but you can pretty much build what you want with a half-elf. They reach adulthood at the same age as humans, so a 20-year-old and 18-year-old half-elf, perfectly playable, but they live to 180 years old, so an Aragorn-style character where he just has a long life compared to a human, again, totally playable. No particular alignments, normal size, normal speed. They have dark vision thanks to their elf blood. They have advantage on saving throws against being charmed. The magic can't put them to sleep with Fey ancestry. And they gain the proficiency in 2 skills of their choice. Again, you can see the elf side and the human side coming in, really giving you the ability to play a character of your choice with half-elves. So they're a lot of fun with that. Next, we have the half-orc. The half-orc is basically your equivalent of player orc. Orcs are available, full-blooded orcs are available in later supplements. I believe they are available in... Oh, my brain's going to fail me now. Oh, God damn it. The Guide to Everything. I can't remember the name of the guy. Anyway, they're available to the guide in the Guide for Everything, but in the original thing, half orcs were the thing. Partially because orcs were always considered the bad guys. They were the go-to Nazis, and they were the go-to they were the go-to equivalent of Nazis or terrorists or whatever you were. Orcs are the bad guys. The game's evolved quite a lot since then, meaning that full-blooded orcs are now a totally playable thing. But half-orcs are a lot of fun as well. Not least which because they can hang around human encampments, and that so it gives you a straight-away reason why they know people. They tend to be the way that orcs get into it, but they're more intelligent than orcs, meaning they can better interact with humans. As I say, they tend to be the sort of sedge way that orcs will be guarding a human place because half-orcs have brought them in there and things like that. But because they're smarter, because they're more adaptable, they're sought out heavily by orcs as leaders and strategists. Because they're big and strong, they're sought out heavily by humans as warriors and bodyguards and caravan guards and the like. So it gives you quite a few instant hooks in there. Same with the half-elves, and you'll find this with most other sort of half races. They either tend to be brought up in the human civilization or the orc civilization. So you pick which one you want as to how you want to develop your character background. Humans will sleep with anything, it's well known. Orcs will actually seek out humans to mate with, even offering money and that and such, because they want to produce half-orcs because they're useful to them. A few of you may remember the original half-orc was produced by orcish raids and were the result of bad things happening. They've removed that out of there because, frankly, having a creature that's only method of birth was very unpleasant for the female of the party. Not really that cool. Now, humans and orcs fall in love. Orcs will seek out humans to produce with, in either direction, male or female, and it's much more normal. When it comes to other things, they tend to be quite big, they tend to be quite tall, they tend to be quite scarred, so they really lend to the sort of rough, tough, intimidating character, but you don't have to go that way. And you've got a thing called the Mark of Grumsh, the one-eyed god. It basically says, though their human blood moderates the impact of the orcish heritage, some half-orcs hear the whispers of Grumsh in their dreams, calling them to unleash the rage. So even if you're playing a very civilized orc, which is totally a thing you can do, you're always slightly angry, there's always something pushing at the back of your brain, trying to get you to go nuts, which is a great role-playing hook if you want to play a berserker, or a great role-playing hook if you want to play a cultured wizard who's desperately trying not to smash everybody who disagrees with him. Half-orcs tend to be shunned in a lot of high societies. They tend to hang around the poorer, more working class areas, doing more brutal jobs in human society, or they tend to be considered either the smarter or sometimes the weaker members of the tribe. So you've got two areas you can include there. Although even in most orc tribes, half-orcs can hold their own. You get a strength increase by 2 and a con increase by 1. Obviously that lends itself to being fighters and tough little buggers. Half-orcs mature a little faster. You're going to be an adult by the age of 14. You get dark vision because you're an orc. You gain proficiency in intimidating. Relentless. When you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead and use it to crawl away, which gives you more of the freedom to batter and smash things. Languages, you can speak Common and Orc, meaning that half-orcs will pretty much, again, fit in anywhere. They're a great fun race to play. They're brutal, they're savage, or they can fight that brutal and savage nature. Finally, in the uncommon races, we have tieflings. Tieflings are basically half demons or half devils. I say that because in the main D&D world, they're different things. Demons are chaotic and brutal. Devils are evil and scheming. Tieflings cover both ends. You can pick whichever you want and use it to influence you however you want. Again, referring back to the half-elves and the half-orcs, tieflings don't really have a full culture of their own. They tend to rely on the culture of the parent that raises them. If you're raised by humans, you'll be a human with demonic tendencies. If you're somehow raised by a demon, then you'll be demonic with human tendencies. It's more likely to be raised by humans, to be honest, with tieflings. Demons tend to just cast it willy-nilly. But there's not an unreasonable jump to think that the demon might take an interest in your life and try and influence you if it thinks it can get something out of it, or the devil. So there is that as a background. They're very mistrusted by humans because they look like demons. So you've often got that oppressed, slightly bullied feel, which gives you a lot of background traits there. Your infernal bloodline can be a source of power and a source of magic. Equally, it can just be a curse that gets you beaten up by the other kids in the playground. So again, that gives you some really nice stuff to play with. Most tieflings are cast as self-reliant, mostly because they have a hard time making friends. You got to remember, most adventuring groups are actually amazingly accepting multiracial, multisexual, multicultural groups. But that is an exception to the general rule. Most farmers in most fantasy worlds, when they see something that looks like a demon, sounds like a demon, are going to assume that it's a demon and try and kill it or run away from it. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, okay, a demon, I'll accept that. Well, some of them might, but the more cosmopolitan areas may have seen them. So there is a lot of role play for you and a lot of role play for your DM in playing a tiefling. It's usually a good idea to discuss with your DM where you want to go. That also applies to the half-orcs we just mentioned. If you look like a scary creature, people will be scared of you. In terms of stats, you've got an intelligence increase of 1 and a charisma increase of 2, meaning you've been given precisely the skills to deal with people that are scared of you or don't trust you, if that's what you want to do, or to fleece them and increase that distrust by being distrustful, really. Tieflings are not innately good or evil because they're a player character, but you can choose to go that way if you want to. And again, whether you're lawful or chaotic isn't tied to whether your character is of demonic descent or devilish descent, even though those are very specifically chaotic or lawful. So it's entirely up to you what you want to do. You have dark vision, which is nice, 60 feet. Hellish resistance gives you resistance to fire damage, makes you an ideal sorcerer when things go wrong. And infernal legacy, you get hellish rebuke at 3rd level. When you reach 3rd level, you can cast hellish rebuke as a 2nd level spell. Obviously, that's your 2nd level magic level, not at the 2nd level. And you regain this ability to do so when you finish a long rest. At 5th level, you can cast a darkness spell with this trait and regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. Charisma is your spellcasting ability, which is nice because you've got a +2 charisma buff there. So you're going to be able to really throw that one out. Languages, you can read and write Common and Infernal, which again can be useful. That's a basic rundown of the uncommon races in the PHP. If you're wondering why they're called uncommon races, that's because these are the races you're not likely to find. Up to human are the races that tend to be common and everywhere. They tend to be common not only in the realms that D&D use, such as Faerun, but they tend to be common across the realms. The uncommon races tend to be less common, either because they're basically just a rare race that doesn't breed very much, like the gnomes, or because they're a half-breed race, such as the dragons, the half-elves, the half-orcs and the tieflings, and thus because they don't have their own specific race, they occur only in unusual circumstances when two races want to breed and actually manage to breed, which is not an easy thing. Just because a dragon has sex with a human doesn't mean the human's going to get pregnant. It's worth noting, with the dragons and the demons, the tendency is to take human form. That's why it tends to work. You're not actually having a whole dragon humping a human. That would just involve a dead human in a rather unpleasant way. But because of that, you don't encounter them very much. You might have one, maybe two tieflings, or one, maybe two half-orcs in your group, or in your local setting, but that's usually going to have a reason behind it. You could have it just random if you've got a large D&D group. I once played in an 8-person D&D group where there were two tieflings. They were completely different. They went completely different ways, and they weren't related. That's not impossible. Adventurers groups are the home of the unlikely, but it is unlikely. And if you're going to play any more than that, there usually wants to be some sort of background reason why a collection of these guys has played together. Half-orcs, less uncommon, and half-elves, less uncommon. Half-orcs are quite often hired as bodyguards, and as having a couple of half-orcs hired as bodyguard works. Half-elves, it depends. They can often find their way into diplomatic circles, so having a couple of them meet and decide to work together, not completely unlikely, but again, uncommon. Now, as I say, and whilst you may get a couple of half-orcs, I think that's the most likely chance you get a multiple of. Anything more than a couple, again, you're going to want a reason why there's 5 or 6 half-orcs in a group. It would be substantially unusual. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope some of you guys find it useful. Have fun role-playing. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, remember to like and subscribe to my channel. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. Not sure why, but I am. So if you like it, see me there, and please tell your friends. Thanks very much. Bye.